Hey, have you ever heard Music to be Murdered by Side B? Nobody cares! Fuck you! Hollywood Undead released their first bad album in 2020 and I was bleeding out my ass for 6 months. Life isn't fair. But hey, music is pretty cool. My name is Nathan King and my elitist douchebag music friends from my Discord server got me to listen to like 439 essential Mew albums, Mew being the 4chan board thing, and I've gone through like 30 plus artist discographies in the last year, so basically I've become the world's most eclectic Hollywood Undead fan. I love music that can get pretty weird and quirky though. Not so much to where I'm like the white dude brushing his teeth at the Merzbow concert, but at least enough to where I've heard several free jazz albums, I know what French ambient pop is, and I can argue with Radiohead fans. With any case, some of my audience might enjoy some weird shit that they haven't heard before, so I figure let me pick out 5 of my favorites and try to convince some of you to listen to them. Something I want to note before we start is that every single album here is best to go blind into. So if you value an untainted experience for some of these, then maybe skip through to save yourself spoilers and then come back after listening. For the rest of you, hopefully I can convince you through the minor spoilers to listen to them. So let's make like Weezer and get retarded in here. Let's get retarded in here. Our first album is 1000 gecs by 100 gecs, and I know that this album is not exactly obscure, as a lot of my more music-savvy audience members would expect a list like this to carry something a little bit less normie shit than 100 gecs. Especially with its meme popularity in the last year. That being said, I do think it's well worthy of this list, and on the off chance that someone in my audience has not heard of it or not heard it, then I am glad to offer this introduction. 1000 gecs is an album that is a clash of genres tied to musical absurdism. It is laced with chipmunked auto-tune vocals, mixes trap, dubstep, rock, death metal, industrial noise, the occasional ska, and hyperpop, and yet, unlike failed attempts before to combine those genres, it manages to construct something wholly unique, infectiously catchy, and relentlessly fun. This album is perfectly short at just a bit over 30 minutes, and it wastes no time in being a roller coaster of genre shifts and explosive vignettes. Nothing in this album lasts long enough to be grating, nor is it too short to reach its potential. It's perfect. To lay out the experience in more layman terms, picture this. 1 minute you're listening to a hype trap banger that out of nowhere turns into dubstep or death metal, and it'll crash into your ear before leading into a ska song about horse racing and then whatever the fuck this is. It's an experience that I would hate to spoil farther, and love it or hate it, I'd say it's an essential album for anyone looking for a reaction to something new. I remember when this album first came out, everyone in my Discord was freaking out about it. I think Doc was talking about, like, this is Sonic Nightcore music, but better! And it was just like, it was fucking hype. Not everybody likes it. There's some people who fucking hate it, like my friend Brant, despises it. But I think that it is something that you're either gonna love or hate. For me, this album is a fucking 10, and it's in my top 15 albums currently, because it's an album that I can put on at any point and have a great time. No matter how many times I listen to this album, it feels fresh every time. And it's so quick, and it shifts around so much, and I love all of the individual pieces so much that it all comes together, and it's just so hype and so fun, you know, every time. The crazy presentation and gimmicky genre shifts are on the surface of this album, admittedly, but underneath that surface lies an album that is an incredibly entertaining ride, re-listen after re-listen. There's so many little details, like in Money Machine, where they take the pitch shift on the vocals and they roll the keys in a brief moment for an impact in the vocal section. Gek 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 is a wonderful abstract troll song that is probably has the funniest dubstep breakdown in any song ever. Undertone is an incredibly cute song, and it offers a bit of a softer pause in the album, while still allowing the energy of the project to proceed uninterrupted. And the final track, Gek to You, is an incredible song, even outside the weird stuff. It's so catchy and infectious, and the end of it is the end of this song and the end of this album is fucking insane, as the album does what I can only describe as trying as hard as they can to break the soundscape and just tear the album to shreds in the last moments. It's something that you just need to experience for yourself. I genuinely love every single song on this album, and it puts me in a genuinely good mood every time I listen to it. I absolutely recommend checking this 2019 oddity out, even if it's just to see what people are talking about. Love it or hate it. And to the music fans who already know about this, hopefully the next 4 picks are a bit more to your obscure taste. Titties, boobs, breasts even. So you want some crazy ass shit? Here's some Japanese jazz punk for you. Some Jap shit that translates to Hello Everyone, We Are Midori is an album by the Japanese band Midori, and it is a wild and bursting to the brim with energy package that's just... you gotta listen to it. It's one that you have to experience for yourself. The song I just showed, Yukiko-san, despite being the loudest, is only the beginning of this 30-ish minute album. What follows is wild, pretty, elegant, irreverent, and goddamn catchy. You like jazz? Well, here's some of that with noisy guitars and a psychotic Desu Desu girl screaming her fucking lungs out. And don't even get me started on the piano throughout. Like... God damn. I'll keep this album brief because I don't want to spoil the experience any more than I already have. I will just warn that it is not on any streaming services, and I'll throw a YouTube playlist. Psych! It's just on fucking Spotify, and it was just put on there when I, like, after writing this album before recording it. So go check out the link on Spotify because it's in some kanji shit. Listen to this album. It is, like, only, like, 20-something minutes long. It's fucking wild. It's crazy. It's loud. It's irreverent. It's fun, and it's got boobs on the cover. You have no fucking excuses. Listen to Midori. Our next pick, fuck you. Our next pick is Studio Tan by Frank Zappa. Okay, so you've heard gecs because you're a trashy person, and you've heard Midori because you're a porn addict. Well, here's an obscure 70s progressive semi-comedy neoclassical jazz rock fusion record that no one outside of my Discord has ever heard. Even if you know or listen to Frank Zappa, this is one of his least popular records, to the point of me not finding it on a single top 10 Zappa's album list that I could find. That being said, this album makes up for its obscurity with its immense quality. I found this album from my friend Brant from Grammy-nominated YouTube channel Brant's Corner. Speaking of which, he's apparently going to be dropping a video talking about this same album, so go check that out if it's uploaded. If not, whatever, I don't know, who cares. Okay, so Tim, your fat music snob friend showed you an obscure album, but is it crazy ass? Well, let's take a look at the first track. The Adventures of Gregory Peccary. This song alone makes this album the least accessible out of the bunch. It is a 20-minute neoclassical song with a Zolo edge to it. And since you guys listen to Eminem, let me allow myself to explain what neoclassicalism and Zolo mean. Let me take off my jacket. It's fucking hot in this winter storm. Glasses. It's gonna hurt. Oh god. So neoclassicalism is a 20th century wave of classical music that tried to revive your Beethoven and Bach type of jams with symphonies and occasional jazz direction. A lot of neoclassical music sounds a lot like pieces that would appear behind Looney Tunes shorts. Zolo, on the other hand, is a genre that is rather tricky to pin down. Apra Amkos describes the genre, saying, "The music features lopsided rhythms, synthesized bleeps and boings, polka dot percussion, fantasia, autonomy, falsetto, wacky imagery, frolic and whimsy, and a bold attitude. Zolo contains elements of both progressive rock and new wave, but Zolo is a creative thread that runs both independent of, and most importantly, in between both of those genres. Now that all probably sounds pretty boring as shit to some of you, but there's another angle to the song that makes it pretty insane. You see, in between the brilliant musical arrangement, Zappa narrates a story about a talking pig who invents the calendar and is then chased down by aging young people. And there's a bunch of other weird vignettes that the story takes, and it all ends in a super self-aware ending playing upon the void of meaning the whole thing entails, and it's just wild. It's crazy. You gotta listen to it a few times to get everything, unless you're better at paying attention to shit than I am. I don't want to spoil anything more, and I understand that a 20-minute song in an unfamiliar genre can be tasking to some, but this one is definitely worth the listen. And then after that, this album still isn't done. We still got 3 more tracks, and they're all so good. The second track is a comedy song called Let Me Take You to the Beach. It is as infectiously catchy as it is charmingly silly. Also, despite it being an incredibly short joke song, it's still incredibly well composed and has some nice little vocal passages and keyboard chops. Surprisingly, the little guitar solo towards the end of the song is also really good for, like I said, what is basically a parody of beach pop. The third track is revised music for guitar and low-budget orchestra. It's a very chill, progressive jam that I don't really have much to say about other than it's just really good. That leads us to the magnum opus of this project. The last track of Studio Tan is called RDNZL, or Redunzel, and I'm going to be straight up here. This is by far my favorite song. Not just on this album, not just from Frank Zappa, but my favorite song of all songs. This song is beyond transcendent to me. It's a progressive jazz rock fusion that single-handedly made me appreciate music as an art form in ways that I never had before. The way the melodies progressed and shifted and the energy built and paid off through different sections hit me and still hits me to this day so intensely with every listen. The song explodes onto the scene with loud and sugary keys emulating a jackpot in a casino before shifting to a sweet lounge jazz section with just a bit of a cartoony edge to it, but just very chilled out section. The melodies here are as pretty as they are complex. The section slowly builds and builds in its piano arrangement until the guitar just roars onto the soundscape. And what follows is my single favorite guitar solo in any song. It's so crazy good. One part that sticks out that I really love is the rolling guitar licks in the middle that hit my ears in such a perfect way. Just, fuck. Like I said, it's my favorite guitar solo, and on top of that, it's not even my favorite part of the song. You see, towards the end of the guitar solo, the song settles back down into a relaxed piano break that bridges the soulful guitar solo into an explosive jazzy piano solo. This is my favorite piano solo in any song, and if you know anything about me and my musical taste, I am, for lack of better words, a slut for piano. It's my favorite instrument, and when it's done well, it is transcendent for me. And this segment feels like an exciting chase scene breaking out with endless energy and a perfectly bouncy whimsy. Within this piano solo lies my single favorite moment in any music or any song. Something about this section hits my ears so perfectly that it physically is impossible for me to listen to it without feeling an intense feeling of euphoria. After the solo, we slip into a loud and grand crescendo that covers the soundscape before ending the song with the same jackpot jingle motif that we started with, except with more of a sense of finality rather than introduction. It's a fucking perfect climax to just... Fuck, what a perfect piece of art. A fucking perfect piece of music. Fuck. Shut the fuck up, laptop fan. What are you doing? We might be stuck with this, laptop fan noise. You going away now? Right as the fucking fan stops, the fucking air conditioning comes. Oh well, we're going with probably shitty audio from here on out, but oh well, we're 3/5 in, so let's do it! The next album that we have is as niche as it is incredible, and that's Sing to God by Cardiacs. So, Cardiacs are an interesting band, to say the least. Founded and led by Tim Smith, who unfortunately died last summer, rest in peace. Originally known as Cardiac Arrest, Cardiacs went opposite the direction of the mainstream and crafted a niche pocket of music and an incredibly loyal fan base. Their band, as well as their record label, LARPs as a futuristic dystopian critique on the scummy music industry. When you look at music nerds try to place them within genres, you'll see such words come up like art rock, art punk, Zolo, progressive rock, psychedelic, pronk, and yes, even Zolo. And yet, when you ask the band themselves what they are, they'll simply say that they just make pop music. But what is the music really like? Well, you have to listen yourself to get a full picture, but I'll do my best to talk about this album. So, Sing to God is a 1996 double album that would be the band's magnum opus. Now, I have a bit of an issue with double albums, mainly that I feel like every album that's categorized as one would be better if it was cut down. Like, I think of All Eyes on Me by Tupac, Yellow Brick Road by Elton John, The Powers That Be by Death Grips, Life After Death by Biggie, all fantastic records, but each and every one of them could be cut down massively. There's so much filler. And then you have albums like the Beatles' White Album and Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness by Smashing Pumpkins that I think go from good to passable albums to awful albums due to their bloated length. I cannot stand these two albums, and it's just like, fuck, there's good elements, there's good songs, but why the fuck is there like 40 minutes of shit that I don't like, you know? In the case of Sing to God, though, I do believe that the majority of the music here is great, but it could be cut down slightly. Mainly just like 3 or 4 tracks in the second half should be cut out. Still though, since there's so much to cover, I'll just talk about some of the highlight tracks in the album in hopes that it will pique your fancy and you'll check the whole thing out, rather than talking about every single track, you know? The first standout track for me being the first song that, on my first listen of the album, stood out and I would revisit after listening to the album, so much so that it made me want to re-listen to the album as a whole, and then the album clicked for me after that. So that song being Dog Like Sparky, which is an art rock track that does this incredibly interesting thing with its chorus that I barely understand, where the tempo seems to shift back and forth like it's a turning wheel, gaining and losing resistance while simultaneously being incredibly catchy. It's something that you just have to hear for yourself, but it's like ba 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 da 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 da, and it's like as it's like pulling up and down, it just the tempo changes and it's like there's resistance pulling back and then it's freeing, and it's so weird, and I don't know if I understand the music theory behind it. Well, okay, I definitely don't understand the music theory behind it, but fuck, it's so cool. The rest of the song too is a phenomenal little art punk jam. The next song that is a standout is Fiery Gun Hand, which opens with these dueling stereo guitar plucks that bounce from ear to ear and swell into the main riff of the song, and it leads into a high-energy verses and crazy lyrics and a chorus that is just absolutely incredibly infectious. Then, after that chorus, it leads into a post-chorus with bouncy sung vocals matching with a wavy, screeching guitar tone, not to mention the progressive guitar solo with wacky Zolo key solo spliced into it. It's just, what a fantastic song with such layers and layers and layers of quality. There's Insect Hooves on Lassie, which has some of the weirdest lyrics I've ever heard in a song. It has these rolling synth keys and closes with this amazing bit where Tim offers a catchy vocal passage that has a call and response sort of deal with complementing key passages. Belly Eye is an uncontrollably catchy poppy punk jam with verses and choruses competing to see which is more infectious, and let's not even get started on the track's use of backing vocals. The song Dirty Boy sounds like it takes a riff from Paul Williams' The Hell of It from the movie Phantom of the... The song Dirty Boy sounds like it takes a riff from Paul Williams' The Hell of It, most notably used in the movie Phantom of the Paradise and Samuel Smegma Goes to Hell.
I'm convinced that I'll wind up burning too.
Thank you, Sonic.
And it uses it to construct a weighty, down-tempo song that explores the exploitative nature of war. However, the thing that makes this song stand out is the outro, where they finish singing and hold the final note of the song for almost 2.5 minutes as the instrumentation swells and it builds endlessly. The experience of listening to this is humbling, overwhelming, and unlike anything I've ever heard. It's just like, oh, for 2 minutes, and it just swells on that final note with vocals that are just incredible. It's fucking incredible. Bell Stinks is a great instrumental track, and it's accompanied by Bell Clinks, which is a short, high-energy romp that is just infectious. And once again, take a drink every time I say infectious in this video. But Flap Off You Beak is a piano-heavy rock jam that feels kinetic, joyful, and unbearably catchy. Quiet as a Mouse is an incredibly unnerving skit that needs to be experienced instead of explained. And the final standout track for me is Nurse's Whispering Verses, which might be my favorite track. This song flat out has the greatest guitar riff I've ever heard in any song. Not only is the guitar tone perfect, but it does this thing that I've never heard before, where it uses the stereo channeling in the song to move each note of the riff from ear to ear to overlap in this riff that is seamless, and it just has this warbling effect that is just pure sex to the ears. It's incredible, and I have no idea how they did it. It's like every note bounces back and forth, but it complements each other just seamlessly into this fucking holy shit. And then the rest of the song is nothing to laugh at either. It builds off on this riff with awesome verses and a heavy hitting chorus that's just so goddamn hype. And that's just the highlight tracks. There's a lot more here, and most of it is really good. This album might be a little bloated, but it's one of a kind and truly a masterpiece that seeks to be entirely its own thing. With only a few days before me writing this, Cardiacs has just put on Spotify their entire discography. So now you have no excuse to check it out, because when I heard this album, it wasn't anywhere on streaming except for YouTube, and even then it was bootleg. You had to buy official, discography, like albums and shit. That being said, it's not necessarily good news because, Tim Smith didn't want it on Spotify, and then he died, and then they put it on Spotify. A little scummy, kind of stands against what the band stands for, but ease of access does mean easier accessibility for new listeners. So I'll be checking out the rest of their discography very soon, and you owe it to yourself to check out this masterpiece of an album. The last album we'll be talking about is The Mollusk by Ween. So this last album is not the most obscure album on this list, nor is it the absolute weirdest, but I want to talk about it so much that I couldn't pass this up as the pick. Also, what's a video about weird music if I don't talk about Ween? So, for those of you who do not know, Ween is a band that absolutely refuses to stay inside of a box. They constantly shift genres and style, each with a weird and unique angle. Dean and Gene Ween are fucking crazy, but I'll be damned if it hasn't been to their benefit. Before we talk about their magnum opus, The Mollusk, I'd like to briefly talk about their entire discography. So, to start you off, they have something called the Brown Era, which is the first 3 albums they released, as well as some of the tapes that they released before that, between 1990 to 1992. Their first of these albums, God Ween Satan, is fucking awesome. It's an awesome, weird, high-energy, avant-garde, distorted punk album that conveys this overwhelming feeling of schizophrenia and anarchy. The track Bumblebee sounds like this. Also, there's a 8-minute funk song that's distorted to hell called Let Me Lick Your Pussy. So, God Ween Satan, definitely check that album out. The next Brown album, The Pod, is, in my opinion, unlistenable. Instead of the high energy of God Ween Satan, you get this sluggish, disgusting, uncomfortable, long as fuck slog of an album that I never want to listen to again. Like, it'll appeal to some people, but for me, good God, was this album irritating as fuck to get through. The only highlight of this album being a 2-minute song that's literally just them ordering Mexican food for 2 minutes. The third and final Brown album is Pure Guava, which, in my opinion, is half awesome and half unlistenable. So it's like you took half of God Ween Satan, half of The Pod, put it together. Oh, the song Morning Glory, not to be confused with Oasis, but the song Morning Glory is probably the most unlistenable fucking song I've ever heard in my life. It is just makes me nauseous. But then on the other hand, you got songs like Reggae Junkie Jew, which is really fun, and then you got Pumpin' for the Man, which is fun. So like I said, there's a lot of good and a lot of bad in this album, but that's the fun of it. Skipping ahead to the other end of their discography, you have their 2000s run, which is a lot more conventional while still having some good stuff in it. White Pepper is an okay album that really doesn't have much weird at all in it. El Cucaracha is a bit disappointing as a final entry in their discography. And Quebec has some great parts like the Fucked Jam, which, listen to this. It's literally that with like pauses, and it's just that for like 2 minutes where it'll do that and then like 20 seconds of silence and then do that again. It's fun, but Quebec, it's not really like one of my favorites from Ween, but I do appreciate some of it while I don't enjoy some other aspects. And then you got Shinola Volume 1 being an outlier of this period because it's an album with songs across their entire discography of like cutting room floor tracks that they remade into a cohesive album. Monique the Freak being one of their best songs coming from this. It's such a good distorted funk song. Fucking perfect. Love Monique the Freak. Check that one out. Then between these two sides of the horribly unexcessive Brown era and the awkwardly too excessive 2000s era, you get late 90s Ween, which is the cream of the crop, absolutely. First you got Chocolate and Cheese, which is an album that is about as all over the place as possible, while still offering a high quality though. In this album you can jump from the horrifying Spinal Meningitis to a beautiful progressive rock song, A Tear for Eddie, to the ridiculous Mr. Would You Help My Pony, to the chilling 7-minute Spanish revenge song, Buenos Tardes Amigo, which is beautiful, and then immediately goes from that song to the follow-up, the HIV song. AIDS. Then after Chocolate and Cheese, they made a country album called 12 Golden Country Greats. And there's only 10 songs. God, I love Ween. Listen, I'm not the biggest country fan, but this album kicks ass. Easily some of the best country I've ever heard, and it's got a little bit of weirdness. Like, it's Ween, but it still embraces the country element. It's got weird storytelling tracks, fun tracks, it's got a kinetic energy to it while still having that kind of twangy country appeal. fucking love this album. Then they close out their late 90s run with what is easily their best album, The Mollusk. So long story short, Ween are the Ocean Man guys. Fun fact, not only did the SpongeBob movie use a song from this album, but apparently Steven Hildenberg was inspired to make SpongeBob in the first place because of this album. So that's pretty cool. Long intro to this album out of the way. I just wanted an excuse to talk about Ween as a whole. And let's dive into the friggin' Mollusk, yo. So with the Mollusk, every song is fucking incredible. So I'm gonna go ahead and just talk about all of them. We open up with a perfect tonal intro with a silly, low-tempo vaudeville musical number called I'm Dancing in the Show Tonight, complete with warped cartoony vocals and, weird channeling sort of deal to just give it kind of an off edge, but still it's really silly, really wacky, and just a perfect intro to the album. Then we go into the title track, which may be one of the greatest psychedelic songs ever made. The beautiful rolling synths, the wavy, soft vocals, the transcendent mixing, and the bizarre writing all tied together as a musical piece that you just have to follow along with. Like a beautiful, colorful wave. And the outro throws horns and swells the track to create an indescribable feeling. The Mollusk is one of the most beautiful songs I've ever heard. It's so good. The next song is Polka Dot Tale, which is a sluggish and swaying psychedelic song. This song is fun enough, but when the instrumental breaks down after he says, "Help me," and we get this filtered and delayed guitar, and it feels like you're transported to another realm of existence. It's fucking transcendent. Jesus Christ. I'll Be Your Johnny on the Spot is a fast-paced, energetic track that feels like what would happen if you took punk production and then mixed it with post-punk vocals that include a warped guitar solo and a frantic outro. It's as infectious as it gets. Once again, take a drink. The next song may very well be a contender for best song on the album. Mutilated Lips. This song is a masterpiece. It is a perfect psychedelic song. The vocals are almost haunting in their delays, and the wailing synths put you through this song that feels like a hypnotic trance. The chorus is bizarre, catchy, and so uniquely and perfectly written, and the guitar tones on the solo, they're orgasmic. I can never get enough of this song, and every time I play it, it feels like the first time. Just incredible. Fuck. The Blarney Stone is a piratey, vulgar, fun drinking song that keeps to the psychedelic angle of the album through its vocal and instrumental distortion. The voice that they do for this song is so ugly, and yet it's so fun. It feels like a great time, and that distorted accordion throughout just sounds so fucking great! It's Gonna Be Alright is one of the most relaxing, melancholic, and beautifully sad songs I've ever heard. The chorus alone could almost bring me to tears with its soft vocals. The instrumentation bounces off the vocals in just this absolutely perfect way. Just a beautiful song. The Golden Eel is a track that is as bizarre as it is grand in scale. It's psychedelic, but not in a comfortable way. The track, especially in the chorus, feels like an evil and earth-shattering premonition. The mixing and the vocals convey this feeling perfectly. Cold Blows the Wind is a slow, beautiful storytelling track that tells of a widow visiting her lover's grave as he returns to life once a year. It's macabre, sad, chilling, and endlessly atmospheric. Pink Eye on My Leg is a stupid and sluggish brown track that includes dumb shit like dogs barking and abrasive synths. It's great. I love it. Holy shit, Waving My Dick in the Wind is a fucking banger. Holy shit, this song is awesome. Such high energy. So catchy. So infectious. Dance, Jimmy Wilson, dance!
I can't really dance like I used to. I mean, I'm trying, but I'm an old man now.
Buckingham Green is another contender for best track on here. These vocals are so intense and beautiful, and the filters put on them help to make them punch so hard. And the breakdown is so dramatic and incredible. This track is a masterpiece that I can't even explain. You just have to experience it for yourself. Then Ocean Man, you already know it's fucking awesome. It's fucking awesome. That being said, if you haven't heard this song in a while, you owe it to yourself to re-listen to it, because it's not just the cool SpongeBob song, it's actually just an incredible psychedelic rock jam. Then the closer, She Wanted to Leave, ends the album on this pretty and melancholic note while giving this nice feeling of being lonely on the sea. And then they end the album on an instrumental bit that harkens back to the intro motif of the album, the Dancing in the Show Tonight, except with this little sad piano beat that works really well after the sad song She Wanted to Leave, while still being kind of kooky and fitting the album as a whole, and harkening back to the wild, cartoony beginning of the album. The Mollusk is a perfect album, and it is easily my favorite psychedelic album I've ever heard. It's my favorite Ween album I've ever heard, and one of my favorite Weird albums, and yes, an easy contender for my top 10 albums in general. In fact, after writing all this, it may be in my top 5. It has to kind of fight against The College Dropout by Kanye for that spot, but still, this goddamn album is fucking incredible, and I cannot recommend it enough. Bring us out, Jimmy Wilson!
Oh yeah, coming now.
So yeah, that's 5 albums that you should check out. You're welcome. Hopefully y'all enjoy at least something here, and I'm definitely looking forward to some Rate Your Music scum telling me why I'm wrong. Surge Night 2, baby! Hey, have you guys heard of an album called Revival? Swan Songs is unironically a 10. Fuck you!
My clothes are always retro, sexual like I'm hetero, and I play a bitch like Nintendo. Take her for a ride in my Benzo.